Hello there, and welcome everybody to this week's DevCentral Connects. My name is Boo, one of your community evangelists on the F5 DevCentral team, and I am your host today. Today we've got on special guest Rob DeWeese. I'll bring him on in just a second here. He's from Kyndryl, and I believe his title is Director of Cloud Networking. I'll get that from him in a second, actually. But we're going to be talking about multi-cloud networking. He's got an awesome background in that field, so it'll be great to pick his brain on that one. Before we do that, though, just wanted to go over a couple things right now. If you are watching from LinkedIn or Facebook or YouTube or Twitter right now, make sure you give us a follow, click like if you can. You might actually be listening to this after the live stream via podcast. So you might be listening to us via Apple, SoundCloud, Google, Spotify. Make sure you follow us on one of those as well. Leave a 5-star review and all the good things on there. That really helps us out as far as growing our audience and reaching more people. And then just wanted to remind everybody that this live stream is supported by community.f5.com. So this is the technical user community of F5, but we don't actually necessarily talk all about F5 on there. We can have all sorts of technical discussions on there. You can have non-technical discussions on there as well. We have the water cooler area. You could post your Wordle score if you're still playing Wordle. If you are playing Wordle, let me know in the comments, but I still actually play it every once in a while. And then I also wanted to highlight a couple other things that are happening right now. Currently, it is Microservices March with Nginx. So if you head over to nginx.com/mm, that's Microservices March, head over there and you'll actually be presented with the ability to sign up for 4 weeks of training. And so totally free. You get to learn about microservices. It's not just about the Nginx side of things, but it's around the whole ecosystem when it comes to microservices. And what we're doing with this is Jason has been running through all of the labs live. So when you sign up, you get access to the labs. They come out every week, and then you can run through the labs. And for folks who are a little bit unsure about it, and you're maybe thinking about dipping your toe into this, you can actually watch Jason's live streams on Thursdays at 8 a.m. Pacific time, and he actually runs through the labs, and you can watch him go through them. And maybe that's all you wanted to watch, or maybe you just wanted to be a little bit more comfortable with what you're seeing in the lab and then run through it. It's totally live. I mean, typos and everything. Jason will admit that at this point, maybe it's better to copy paste as opposed to try to type everything out. But this Thursday, I'll actually be covering for that. Jason's got to step out for a bit. And so I'll be covering Microservices March and doing the lab live at 8 a.m. on this channel. So be sure to like, subscribe, follow, all the things. A couple other things as well. If you go over to community.f5.com, there's an events tab on there, and that's got our event calendar, F5's event calendar on there. Not every single event, but a lot of events are posted on there. And a couple things are actually happening this week. One thing is, it might be too late for this already because of the time, but Singapore, our friends over in Singapore are having a lab day right now. So be sure to check out the calendar because there's another one coming up in Australia next week. So if you're in that region, be sure to check that out, sign up and head over to that virtual lab. And also this week is the Public Sector Symposium. And this is happening in Tyson's Corner in Virginia, McLean, Virginia. And this is live and virtual. So if it's live, you're probably there already. But this also is happening virtually. And so you can sign up. Check out the keynotes from there. There's training that's happening there as well. And if you're one of those CISSP or ISC square types, you can actually go to the event and collect CPE hours as well, which I know is important for those types to make sure you collect those for maintaining your certification. So please do check out the events that are happening on the DevCentral events calendar. So with all that, I'd like to bring on my guest here, and let's welcome Rob DeWeese. Rob, how you doing?
Great, man. Thanks for having me. Really appreciate it, Boo.
Yeah, thanks for jumping on. I'm really excited to chat about this, actually. So if folks have not checked it out yet, from an F5 perspective, today specifically, you'll be seeing a couple things around our multi-cloud networking offering, App Connect and Network Connect. Not for me to get in too much into the product stuff, but times out really well that we're going to be talking about multi-cloud networking because, Rob, you have a great background in multi-cloud networking. Maybe I'll give you a second to introduce yourself.
Hey, guys. Nice to meet you. Rob DeWeese out of snowy Lake Tahoe. That's where I live. If you haven't been paying attention, we've been getting hammered. I am the director of cloud networking at Kyndryl. It's an IBM spinoff, formerly the chief architect. I was recently just moved up into that role. And I really focus on Fortune 500 companies and originally cloud transformations, but then bringing back my passion for networking and combining the two and developing the cloud networking practice where, you know, we focus on what is anywhere from a third to 70% of what you do in cloud, which is networking from landing zone design, IP address management, load balancing, firewalls, security groups. I mean, you cannot have cloud without networking, and that is my passion, and it's followed me throughout my career, and I've helped develop a lot of cloud features for AWS and Azure, and then hopped over to the other side of the fence, which is consulting. And that's where I really wanted to get involved with the customers, and that's where I've found a lot of success in the last 6 years.
And that's awesome. I know your background's networking because you recently shared that you are a 10-year CCIE, like emeritus now.
Emeritus. Yeah, so
Emeritus.
last week was really cool. On the same day, I got, my 10-year, certification, which means it's lifetime status, so I don't have to recertify anymore, and the
Nice.
CCIE was very hard for me. I actually got it at Amazon, when I was working at AWS, and, one of my, coworkers at the time who helped me with it, Cam Agion, he's actually the director of cloud at Oracle now, and then another buddy that helped me with it too, Steve Means, is director of security at Azure. So there was this like core team back in the day. We all just went our own ways, but we're still banging it out in the cloud world and making big impact.
Wow. Yeah, that's pretty cool. So congrats on that. I know that's no small feat to have to recertify or to get it in the first place and then to recertify over and over. Did you get it first try or did it take a couple of lab attempts for that
Second
too?
attempt. Second
Nice.
attempt. The first time, as I had a friend say, it's a reconnaissance mission. Essentially, the first time. Some people do
Yeah.
pass, but you get better when you fail a few times or you fail once or whatever. So
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's pretty awesome, man. So maybe for a second, we can kind of dip back into your history. And you mentioned that you worked at Amazon. I know you have a couple other places that you had some great experience from as well. But maybe kind of diving back into your earlier days in networking, we can kind of trace back to how everything evolved into what it is now.
yeah, I think actually a good place is to start when I was a kid. Growing up, family had a company called INE.com, Internet Network Expert, and grew up routing and switching, configuring
Oh,
BGP at 16, doing CCIE labs and whatnot. And I got
wow.
my Cisco certs in high school and college. And when I left college, I joined the FBI actually and moved to Washington D.C. and worked for the Department of Biometrics, where biometric, a measurable trait on your body, handprint, oculus, fingerprint, whatever, and started solving some really complex problems. And they had me moving out, going to Seattle a lot. So eventually I moved to Seattle because I liked the area. And I joined Amazon really at the beginning of cloud
Mm,
and just started working in networking because that was my passion. And at the beginning of cloud, it was really about storage, compute, and networking. It was just
mm,
simple storage, simple web instances, and connecting it all. And so working on features and standard platforms and data centers, so it could grow. And one of the first technologies I worked on was Direct Connect, which is how you connect to AWS, and learned a lot from that. And eventually I left Amazon and hopped the bridge, as we say in Seattle, across Lake
mm,
Washington and joined Microsoft. Um,
mm,
and Microsoft kind of continued down that route, worked on Express Route and, making things better, different iterations of what I wanted to work on, and make better and allow people to connect anywhere at any time for any reason. Okay. What I found though, after, this almost decade in cloud, was that 2 out of 10 things you work on throughout the year actually are successful. Okay, and I
mm,
was getting sick of spending 70% of my time working on things that never worked out. And if 2 things you do in a year are a commercial success, that's great, right? But
mm,
when you're on the development side, you do a lot of guessing at what the actual problems were, and I wanted to go out and see that. I always thought IBM as, a key pillar in the IT, industry, and one of the best consulting companies. They only do hard problems. They used to have
mm,
this marketing thing that, we do hard, right? I wanted that. I think it was that ad that was like, "I want this," you know?
Mm,
And so I hopped to the other side of the fence, as I like to say, and learn what the actual problems are and started working with Fortune 500 companies. So, I joined as a cloud architect originally on the cloud migration factory, as we called it at the time, and then moved up to lead architect within a year, and then, worked my way into chief architect and then now director of cloud networking. Always bringing a passion and flavor of networking to cloud and a lot of education. When I sit in front of these very large clients, these execs, these directors, uh, the story resonates when they start to understand how cloud was actually born and what the real problems are.
mm.
And so IBM spun off their consulting company into a company called Kyndryl. We're about a year old, but we're the largest GSI in the world. So we're still IBM flavored, but we're doing things a little different now. And I like the freedom of it and the ability to control my team and really pick rock stars and transform things. And
Mm,
one ways I'm doing that is with the F5 products. You're one of the um, you were the first solution I sought out over a year ago, for the new cloud networking initiative, because the original creators of that product, when it was called Volterra, I believed in their vision. I thought that they really got it, that connecting one cloud to another, um, how to simplify everything, how to have a development page where I can download the YAML or the scripts from your F5XC product. It was completely in line with my vision, and that's really where I hooked back up with F5 with a strong passion in the last year plus, and been presenting in front of clients, and we're getting some deployments done at some large companies, and it's been really great. So, yeah.
mm. That's awesome. I mean, that's amazing validation from somebody with your history to have seen the vision of Volterra and believe in that. So I'm sure those guys and everybody that works on distributed cloud really appreciates that. Maybe if we were to go back to your experience with Direct Connect and Express Route,
Mhm.
originally, like how were those conceived? Like there was a problem that you were trying to solve at the time.
Yeah. So the problem was, the original instantiation of cloud at AWS was, compute, storage, and we had to network in. Okay. Well, the original way to connect in was either through, the internet, which, 10 plus years ago, the internet performance isn't like it is today, where it's like we don't need QoS anymore for a lot of things. Like companies run on like Teams or Slack, or, you can do video calls over the internet and the quality is good. We're on a Stream app right now. It doesn't require
Yeah.
VPN, doesn't require private MPLS connectivity. But at the time, the internet wasn't that way. YouTube videos would buffer, it was a problem. So
Mm,
we had to come up with ways for people to connect in via VPN, and there were no good VPN options. So the original product was developed on an open platform called OpenSwan, which is just IPsec VPN to connect in. And that was one way. Okay, you had to be able to connect in, but we needed the private connectivity option. And this is where Direct Connect was really born, was out of communication with large ISPs like Orange Telecom, Verizon, whatnot, negotiating, hey, we need this connectivity for not only like a backbone between all these various standardized data centers, which we're also working on standardization. And that's really what a lot of cloud is standardize everything. It was allowing connectivity for people that needed to transfer databases and things that, terabytes of information transferred over VPN don't work most of the time. So we had to come up with a way for you to connect in to turn this from a small business solution to an enterprise grade solution, and that required private connectivity. So it's a lot of negotiations with carriers. It's a lot of standardization on how we can connect in, so circuit types, geography, data sovereignty. And that was really the birth of Direct Connect, was that a standardized way to connect anyone with private connectivity to support database transfers. Was the original vision, is how I feel, but it's anything that requires bulk transfer that couldn't fail. Okay, and that took it from the small business solution to the enterprise vision.
wow. That's amazing. Like I think from a consumer's perspective, like they look at something like Direct Connect and they're like, oh, I do a couple things and I have a connection. But to hear you talk through all the thought process behind it and the reasons why and everything that's built there and the standardizations that you do, I certainly just within that have a lot more appreciation for what you guys built.
Yeah, I think the principle was, and it applied for Azure's Express Route too, was you need to allow. I have this quote in the CIO magazine article that came out last week. You need to be able to move anything, anywhere, at any time for any reason. And when we're talking massive amounts of data, it requires private connectivity because you're at the mercy of the internet. Packets will fail. It just, even with VPN. So to do bulk transfers, you needed that. Now, the next iteration of what I didn't like about Direct Connect was that it didn't have the ability to do QoS at the time. And that's where ExpressRoute Azure had an advantage, and to this day is still the best private cloud connectivity solution, in my opinion, is that we used standardized on BGP, Border Gateway Protocol. It's the routing protocol that runs the internet. But what BGP does, and with the right contracts and negotiations with the world's telecoms, advertising BGP community tags to then apply quality of service markings and get them respected across many carriers is no small feat. Getting Orange Telecom or Singtel or Star or Verizon to all respect the same markings is quite an undertaking. And that's where ExpressRoute really still does have the advantage. And that's why you can do things like Teams or Azure Active Directory Online. They're still, they use what was originally just BGP community tags. This is how we can, now have QoS over the internet and everything else. It's pretty impactful, and it was just the next iteration. There's many more since then.
That's awesome. So being able now in your role, so you went from building solutions that covered everyone and anyone, and now at Kyndryl, you kind of narrow in and focus on certain customers to solve specific solutions for them. I mean, a big problem or big issues for them, but you're narrowing in on certain customers to solve for them.
Absolutely. So here's all I'm trying to do. Do you see this apple?
Yeah.
All right. Imagine this is a ball, whatever. This is the ideal solution. This is all I'm ever trying to do for my clients. Okay. Is give them the ideal solution. Now, the ideal solution, when you come in from a consultant, what it really takes is having empathy and understanding what the customer's problems are. So, the decision makers at one of these large companies, they will see things, from the top, and their engineering and support staff, they'll see things kind of from the bottom because they deal with the problems. And then you get these like sales teams and consultants, and they kind of come in from over here because they have their agenda to push and make money. And what I've always tried to do is see everyone's problems from the top to the bottom and empathize and really understand. Once you really understand with empathy what the customer's pain points are and how we can make it better, we don't have to go bold. It's just simple iterations that can speed up the execution. So turning up services quicker, requiring less administrative overhead, not too much scripting to where if you lose a developer, no one knows how to fix their script. Okay. And as long as you try and see things around, try and see the entire solution for what it is, from the vendor perspective, from the decision maker side, support, the consulting angle. If you do that, it almost always reveals the solution, and that's the approach I take with my clients. And
Mm.
yeah, and when I'm creating the ideal solution, I also want to make sure that it is built like a product. The environment is built like a product. So like F5XC, when it was built, it was originally multi-cloud connectivity and some QoS and some load balancing. Now it's been adopting new security features and whatnot. The best ideal solutions, they're built like a product, which can adopt new features, that can adopt new standards, that can flex and mold. And that's what I've learned in consulting is really the key, is just making sure you try and build a solution like that. Because if it can't adopt new features, if a new regulation comes out and all of a sudden you've got to throw this out the window, then it looks bad for everyone.
That's a great way to look at it. So, maybe we can spend a bit of time on talking about some of the products that you've built with customers at this point, like maybe some of the ways that they've been successful, or tips on being successful when it comes to multi-cloud networking. What are they solving, or what are you solving with them?
Well, let's look into F5XC. We've got F5XC working at 2 different stock exchanges worldwide right now,
Mm.
and those were quite challenging regulatory hurdles, quite challenging working with banks, the integration to partners, traders, customers in real time, where milliseconds matter to execute a trade. That's where the multi-cloud story comes in, because now you're dealing with something like Azure Active Directory Online. Okay, having to authenticate to an end user, they're going to have some sort of zero trust or VPN agent that identifies and grants them, gives figures out their identity before granting them access. Then you probably have some storage or some real-time news feeds you're pulling in from another cloud. And
Mm.
you have to have this like multi-tenancy model where it's like, hey, this person can only access these resources and never anything else. So now you're dealing with, multiple clouds, probably a SaaS or two, like an SAP or an ADP, to bring in and connect and execute trades, or to pull a news feed to a CNBC, to update to another stock exchange. And then it's got to be extremely secure, connect to a data center. And so you've got this really complex flow of things that just runs the world, right? And it's latency sensitive, highly secure, highly regulated, and it has to go across, the entire world. So how do you enable that? And that's multi-cloud networking, because the center of gravity in networking has firmly shifted to the cloud. Okay, data center. There is a mass exodus out of data centers that should come as no shock to everyone. And now you're seeing a mass exodus of people wanting to get out of licensed hardware in the hardware game, having to refresh tens of millions of dollars a year or every 7 years or so when they need new equipment because it's end of life, end of support. The game is changing. And that's where this is all going. This is where, again, the center of gravity is firmly shifting. Okay. And this is where XC and, other multi-cloud, where multi-cloud networking comes in. It's how do you enable a complex set of flows and not have it take 3 months to turn on a new service? I mean, it will kill your business if you can't roll out the features you need when you need them. And that's where the great simplification, as I like to say, comes in. It's starting to blend, the cloud admins, the networking admins, the security admins, the traditional boundaries of what we're IT, the database admins. It's all kind of blending together now, where everyone's kind of just this cloud administrator that can read a doc and learns how to, turn up a service. But that comes with its own risks, and that is security. 7 of the 10 most misconfigured items in cloud are networking related.
Mm.
Okay, so by having all these cloud admins, configure things and not knowing networking has left the world in its largest vulnerability to date. And that's one thing I'm really trying to clean up. And where your platform is actually, a year ago, it didn't have the security features. Today, it's got the bot, the WAF protection. It's bringing on CDN. It's doing it's because it was built like an ideal solution. It can adopt new features and have a roadmap. And when you're building the multi-cloud solution, that's what you need. Don't be looking at point solutions. Preferably when we're dealing with these larger enterprise customers, point solutions become expensive and they get embedded, and then maybe the company goes bankrupt. And I'd rather have one number to call for support, for a large amount of my tech stack. I'd rather have one bill to pay, to deal with my multi-cloud networking, with my transit, with my security services. And that's really where I think the XD product is, it's excelling.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. I mean, that example sounds really cool too. When you talk about making it a product for a customer too, like from their perspective, I'm guessing, hey, you're the stock exchange, you got a new trading brokerage that wants to get some of your services. They want some seats on the trading floor or something like that. You have to be able to quickly accommodate them. Or there's options out there potentially, like they could look at other stock exchanges maybe to focus more of their efforts on, or maybe a news feed that's coming in and being able to enable them really quickly because all the traders want access to that, and gives you differentiators over your competition if your product can evolve faster.
Absolutely. I'll give another good example that one that I've been working on due to regulatory hurdles from, HIPAA, FCC, and FAA and whatnot. There's another great use case, okay, that's being done in the background, and it's we have this hospital, say in Dallas, Texas, and within a 300-mile radius, it's a bunch of rural towns that don't have access to world-class surgeons and whatnot, or life-saving healthcare. So there's things going on now with like 5G and where your platform fits in, that will allow drones to take off from a major hospital and drop a 5-pound package that could be like an EKG machine or something for a heart stent, or um, paddles to restart a heart.
Did you
And
see
that
the Mark Rober video?
I did. Yeah.
Okay. I just watched that this weekend.
And so there's a lot of complexities that go into that world-changing technology. It's going to be in multiple clouds. It's got to have real-time GPS location. It's got to have 5G. It's got to fly along a certain path and work with the FAA, and to bring these things to light to really change the world. Everyone on DevCentral that's listening, we need good developers to help build these little nuggets that complete the make the ideal solution, because these things are changing the world. But multi-cloud networking is at the center of this specific project, okay? Because you're pulling in things from AWS, you've got some reporting that goes to Oracle, you've got dashboards, you've got to have some edge compute modules throughout the flight path that run on 5G. This is the modern world. It's 2023. It's getting really exciting and it's moving quick. But to make something like that, you can't make it overly complicated. You've got to have, having one console to make the connectivity happen, and the real-time location data, and the automation, the scripting where the F5XC platform fits in. It enables this world-changing technology, and it's at the center of this one solution in particular.
Yeah. Isn't that cool when you can, you have your business, a core function of your business, and you can actually hire developers to work on that core function, because now you can actually offload the multi-cloud networking, the app connect type stuff to be able to connect to your Kubernetes environments. That could be offloaded to something else. So your investment in developers is actually going towards making the business better, as opposed to, having to worry about that stuff.
Absolutely. And since I've got some developers on, developers will be listening to this. Do me a favor, make your code simple. Make it to where you can walk away from it and someone else can figure it out. One thing that I do find is a major hurdle in speed to execution and making these solutions happening is making them overly complicated. If you can get it done in a few lines versus 20, 30, 100 lines, please do, because eventually someone will have to pick up your work like a torch, and carry that light forward and we can't develop these solutions like a product to adopt new features if you don't simplify your code. I cannot harp on that enough. I think that a lot of the problems I run into with these clients, their solutions ended up being, they weren't homogenous. They spot built something and then they had to try and force it together and plug and play. And, to make 2023 happen in the future where technology really is, guys, where it's really exciting. Um, uh, a lot of the pain points I see with the clients are around speed to execution and due to coding, DevOps
Yeah.
automation and whatnot.
This is a shout out to, or a call out to those development managers too, who are judging their developers based on the amount of lines they write or the
That's
amount of commits they
terrible.
push.
I
Yeah.
think that is a terrible metric, honestly, because they say, find a lazy person and they'll find the best way to build something versus there's some quote like
Yeah.
that. And it's true, especially with coding. The simpler, the better if it gets it done. I don't think lines of code is a good judgment. In fact, I think that's the marking of a junior dev more than it is a experienced dev.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. Well, that went by real quick, Rob. So that was, we are at time. I want to thank you for coming on. Would love to chat further. You have a ton of experience that I'd love to dive into further, but we'll have to park it for a part two at some point. I know we have to get going to another recording, so I won't keep you from that. But thank you for jumping on. You have a couple, maybe I'll give you a second here. You have a couple articles that you've written recently that maybe we should highlight before we let you go.
Yeah, I have a 4-part series on next generation cloud networking. It's available on my LinkedIn. And I highly recommend you read them. It's actually 6 articles, and one of them focuses on F5XC, but it follows a transition, a trajectory of explaining what cloud networking is, what NASs are, which F5XC is partly a NAS. And it goes into one article. It's talking about taking back what is ours, which is about taking networking people being more involved in cloud and ensuring that we don't leave the world at a giant security risk, that we're not overpaying for services because some cloud admin just read an article and turned up a service. And then I go into F5 XC, and I call it the old dogs with new tricks is the name of the article. And I really think it's appropriate because F5 has now been around a while, and you guys have been known as one of the developers platforms, one of the best, developing iRules and whatnot for big IP. And, you guys have this flexibility and I love it. And I talk about how that's been brought to F5XC and some overviews. And I do talk about F5XC in an article that hasn't been posted on CIO Magazine yet. I have a 5-part series coming out with them. The first article came out last week. So I'm not sure if the release schedule is like once a month for the next 5 months or what. I'll have to get back to you guys on that, but do talk further on it. And if you're interested, you can reach out to me on LinkedIn.
Awesome. Sounds good. Well, thank you very much, Rob. We have the research team has been putting in some links into the chat, and we'll have all the links on the show thread as well. So thanks a lot, Rob, for joining me today.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much, Boo.
Take care. Alrighty, fantastic to have Rob on. A ton of experience, actually. So that's super cool to have that chat with him. And he's seeing everything from the trenches right now in his role as he hopped over the fence into the consulting side of things. So a ton of great information. Awesome to have him on. A couple of things before we wrap up here. If you're watching from LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, or Twitter right now, make sure you hit follow, subscribe, leave a comment, leave a like. I also wanted to highlight we've got Jose. Thank you very much for joining us today. There you are again. Thanks a lot, Jose. Great to have you on and following with us. Otherwise, you might be listening to this via podcast right now, Apple, Google, Spotify, and possibly SoundCloud. So make sure you're subscribed to us on that. Leave a review if you can as well. Would love to hear from you via that. And then, as always, make sure you visit community.f5.com. Join us on the forums there. Ask your technical questions or whatever questions that you might have around F5 or otherwise. Otherwise, I will see you this Thursday. If you're watching this live, I'll see you this Thursday. I'll be doing the Microservices March Lab live with you Thursday at 8 a.m. Pacific. Otherwise, thank you very much, folks, and we will see you on the next one. Well, thanks for checking out that video. If you have any questions, leave a comment down below. While you're down there, hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't already. You might want to check out one of these videos over here. And if you haven't already, go check out community.f5.com. This is where all the DevCentral Connects hosts hang out, as well as the rest of the community. It's free to sign up, and we'll see you there.